On this day in history, we remember the remarkable individuals who shaped our world. Welcome to Who Died Today in History, where we honor their legacies. From artists to leaders, their impact lives on. If you find their stories meaningful, like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay connected.
Thank you to all our amazing channel members for your generous support.
David Niven, the debonair British actor and novelist, died on July 29, 1983, at the age of 73, from amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, ALS, commonly known as Lou Gehrig's disease. His passing was a quiet and dignified end to a life marked by elegance, wit, and versatility, an exit that both reflected and contrasted the golden age of Hollywood glamour he once helped define. Niven's death from a degenerative neurological disease stood in stark contrast to his screen image: vibrant, suave, and always composed. ALS, which gradually robs individuals of their ability to move, speak, and breathe, served as a painful reminder of the fragility behind fame. The slow, incurable nature of the illness underscored the medical limitations of the time and confronted the public with the inescapable truth that not even the most charming stars are immune to the quiet cruelty of mortality. His passing marked the end of an era for many. Niven had not only won an Academy Award for Separate Tables in 1958, but also embodied a uniquely British refinement during Hollywood's golden years. Known for his real-life military service during World War II, Niven brought authenticity to his portrayals of duty, loyalty, and resilience. When he died, he was mourned not just as an actor, but as a gentleman of integrity, an increasingly rare persona in a rapidly changing entertainment world. His death didn't shift history, but it did mark a cultural inflection point, a farewell to a certain brand of understated stardom. The legacy of David Niven lives on through more than his films. His memoirs, especially The Moon's a Balloon, offer candid, humorous, and touching insights into his life and times, serving as both literature and personal testimony. Tributes, documentaries, and retrospectives continue to frame him not as a relic, but as a touchstone of class and wit. Ultimately, Niven's death, and the grace with which he met it, reveals how we continue to cherish those who not only entertain us, but also embody enduring ideals. Through biography, cinema, and public memory, we preserve the essence of such figures, transforming lives once lived into timeless examples of character, resilience, and charm. Cass Elliot, affectionately known as Mama Cass, died on July 29, 1974, at just 32 years old. A member of the iconic folk rock group the Mamas and the Papas, her voice helped define the countercultural sound of the 1960s. Her death, initially surrounded by myth and misreporting, reflected both the chaotic brilliance of the era and its darker undercurrents. Elliot died of heart failure in a London flat following a series of sold-out solo performances at the Palladium, a comeback moment that was tragically cut short. Though rumors initially claimed she choked on a ham sandwich, which was nearby but untouched, a coroner confirmed that her death was natural, likely linked to strain from crash dieting and the physical toll of a demanding career. In many ways, her untimely end reflected the pressures placed on women in entertainment, especially those who defied traditional beauty standards. Elliot's career had been marked not only by her immense talent, but by constant scrutiny of her appearance, a reminder of the era's unforgiving expectations. The immediate aftermath of her death was one of shock and sadness in both the music world and broader pop culture. She was mourned not only as a beloved performer, but as a vibrant personality whose warmth and humor had left a deep impression. Her passing was another jarring blow in a decade that had already lost Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison, and Jimi Hendrix, artists whose lives burned brightly and ended too soon. Though Elliot's cause of death was not drug-related, the association with early celebrity deaths fed into a growing cultural anxiety about fame, health, and excess. Cass Elliott's legacy has only grown with time. Her voice, soaring in tracks like California Dreamin and Dream a Little Dream of Me, remains instantly recognizable. In recent years, there's been a renewed appreciation for her solo work, charisma, and role as a trailblazer in a male-dominated industry. Murals, tributes, and documentaries have helped reframe her image, not as a tragic footnote, but as a pioneer with lasting influence. Elliot's story highlights how memory, myth, and media shape our view of death and legacy. Through song, storytelling, and cultural rediscovery, we immortalize figures like her not only for how they died, but for how they made us feel while alive. Vincent van Gogh's death on July 29, 1890, marked the tragic end of one of the most tormented yet visionary artists in history. He died at the age of 37 in Auvers-sur-Oise, France, from a gunshot wound to the chest, widely believed to be self-inflicted. His final moments, spent in the care of his beloved brother Theo, were the culmination of years of mental anguish, poverty, and emotional isolation, conditions that reflected not only personal demons, but also the broader societal misunderstanding of mental illness in the 19th century. Van Gogh's life was a paradox of obscurity and brilliance. Despite producing over 2,000 works, he sold only a handful during his lifetime and lived under the shadow of financial and critical neglect. His mental health deteriorated over time, culminating in the infamous episode where he severed part of his ear and was subsequently committed to an asylum. The mystery around his death, whether it was suicide or a misfired accident, continues to spark debate, but the consensus remains that it was the result of deep psychological suffering. The immediate consequences of Van Gogh's passing were subtle, as he was largely unknown to the broader public. However, within a few years, his reputation began to rise, thanks in large part to Theo's widow, Johanna van Gogh Bonger, who tirelessly promoted his work. Over time, his paintings became not only symbols of artistic genius, but also poignant expressions of vulnerability, emotion, and the human condition. Van Gogh's posthumous fame reshaped art history. He became emblematic of the tortured artist archetype, someone who saw the world more vividly than others, but paid the price with his sanity. His bold brushwork and use of color revolutionized modern art, influencing countless movements from expressionism to abstract art. More deeply, his life story became a lens through which society re-examined the links between creativity, suffering, and empathy. The legacy of Vincent van Gogh is preserved in more than just museums. It lives in novels, films, songs, and countless reproductions of The Starry Night or Sunflowers. His letters to Theo provide an intimate view of his thoughts, preserving his voice across centuries. Through these remembrances, humanity continues to grapple with the fragility of the mind and the power of beauty, finding in Van Gogh's life and death a mirror to our own search for meaning and connection. Tom Snyder, the pioneering television personality known for his engaging interviews and distinctive style, died on July 29, 2007, from complications of leukemia. He was 71. His death marked the end of an era in broadcasting where conversation, rather than spectacle, was the centerpiece of late-night television. Snyder's passing was natural, but it occurred at a time when traditional broadcasting was already being transformed by the rise of internet media, reality television, and on-demand content, highlighting the shift from personality-driven dialogue to fast-paced, often superficial formats. Snyder rose to prominence in the 1970s as the host of The Tomorrow Show, a late-night NBC program that followed The Tonight Show. He became known for his smoky voice, signature laugh, and the intimacy he created during interviews with celebrities, political figures, and countercultural icons. Unlike many hosts of his time, Snyder often conducted interviews without a live studio audience, creating a more personal, unscripted atmosphere. His conversations with guests like Charles Manson, John Lennon, and Ayn Rand were not just entertainment. They were windows into the evolving cultural and political landscape of America. His death prompted an outpouring of tributes from fellow broadcasters and journalists who remembered him not only for his trailblazing career, but for his influence on the talk show format. It reminded the public of a time when television was a space for deep discussion and thoughtful curiosity, rather than simply a platform for promotion or comedy. While Snyder never attained the household name status of some contemporaries, his legacy endures in the way modern hosts approach candid interviews. Personalities like David Letterman, who gave Snyder a second act by reviving him on CBS in the 1990s with The Late Late Show, cited him as a major influence. Snyder's authenticity, willingness to let silence linger, and refusal to conform to glitzy expectations laid groundwork for future broadcasters seeking substance over style. Tom Snyder's death symbolizes the fading of a broadcasting era rooted in trust, patience, and intellectual exchange. His memory is preserved not through grand monuments or dramatic headlines, but through the art of conversation, recordings, tributes, and the continued evolution of television that seeks, however infrequently, to match his depth. In remembering him, we reflect on how media shapes memory and how meaningful discourse remains a lasting form of cultural immortality. Jerome Robbins, one of the most influential choreographers and directors of the 20th century, died of a stroke on July 29, 1998, at the age of 79. His passing marked not just the end of a remarkable artistic life, but also the quiet close of an era in which dance and theater were tools for cultural expression and social reflection. Robbins' death was natural, yet emblematic of a time when American performing arts, having passed through the golden age of Broadway and ballet, faced the challenge of preserving tradition while evolving for modern audiences. Robbins' legacy was already deeply woven into the cultural fabric of America through groundbreaking works like West Side Story, Fiddler on the Roof, and his collaborations with George Balanchine at the New York City Ballet. He bridged the divide between classical ballet and popular theater, capturing the complexity of human emotion through movement. His death, while not unexpected due to his declining health, prompted a wave of retrospectives that reaffirmed his status as a master of both storytelling and form. What made Robbins' passing significant was how it invited reflection on the political and social tensions that underpinned much of his work. As a gay Jewish artist during the Cold War era, he navigated identity in a society that was often unforgiving. His controversial decision to testify before the House Un-American Activities Committee in the 1950s, naming names during the Red Scare, haunted him for the rest of his life. In this, Robbins embodied the conflict between self-preservation and solidarity, one of the many moral complexities of his time. In death, Robbins' contributions to the arts were reevaluated not just in terms of choreography, but also as social commentary. His stories often centered on outsiders, immigrants, dreamers, the misunderstood, which resonated across generations. The revival of his works on stage and screen has helped to keep his vision alive, and dance companies around the world continue to restage his ballets, honoring the emotional depth he brought to the form. Jerome Robbins' passing underscores how artists shape the conscience of a culture. His life's work invites us to consider how performance can preserve collective memory and convey truths that transcend words. In commemorating him through ongoing performances, tributes, and scholarly exploration, we not only honor his genius, but reaffirm our need to remember, reinterpret, and reimagine the human experience through art. Nella Martinetti, affectionately known as Bella Nella, passed away on July 29, 2011, after a long battle with cancer. Her death, while natural, carried emotional weight not only for the Swiss music scene, but also for the broader European artistic community. Martinetti, a beloved Swiss singer-songwriter, rose to prominence in the 1980s with her melodic folk-pop style and heartfelt lyrics that celebrated love, homeland, and cultural identity. Her passing signaled the end of an era in which traditional European ballads still held a cherished place in the mainstream. Martinetti's legacy is intimately tied to her role in elevating Swiss music on the international stage. Most notably, she co-wrote the winning song of the 1988 Eurovision Song Contest, Ne partez pas sans moi, performed by a then-unknown Celine Dion. This victory not only launched Dion's global career, but also demonstrated Martinetti's far-reaching influence as a songwriter and cultural ambassador. Her death prompted a wave of tributes across Switzerland and beyond, underscoring how deeply she resonated with audiences who valued authenticity, emotion, and cultural pride. The context of Martinetti's death also reflects broader shifts in European identity. As digital globalization continued to blur national distinctions in the early 21st century, Martinetti's music served as a nostalgic reminder of rootedness, of place, language, and heritage. Her passing marked the waning of a time when local dialects and traditions were central to national character, especially in a multilingual country like Switzerland. In remembering Martinetti, we see how artists often become stewards of cultural memory. Through music, she preserved Swiss traditions, infusing them with contemporary relevance. Following her death, tributes and retrospectives reaffirmed her role as not only a performer, but a cultural icon. Her songs are still played at festivals, in public broadcasts, and in the homes of those who grew up with her voice as a soundtrack to their lives. Martinetti's life and death remind us that mortality often amplifies legacy. In death, she became more than a singer. She became a symbol of enduring cultural identity. Through song, public tribute, and commemoration, we keep her memory alive, showing how art can outlive the artist, providing a lasting connection between past and present in the universal human search for meaning and belonging. June Wilkinson, one of the most iconic glamour models of the 1950s and 1960s, passed away at the age of 85. Her death, attributed to natural causes, marked the quiet end of a life that once radiated under the bright lights of pop culture and pin-up fame. Known as the Bosom due to her curvaceous figure, Wilkinson was more than a sex symbol. She was a reflection of post-war America's fascination with beauty, freedom, and rebellion against rigid norms. Wilkinson rose to prominence during a time when the cultural landscape was undergoing dramatic shifts. In the wake of World War II, and during the early years of the Cold War, the United States saw a surge in consumerism, mass media, and the sexual revolution. Wilkinson's career, often associated with Playboy magazine and numerous B-movie appearances, both shaped and mirrored society's evolving attitudes toward femininity and desire. Her persona was bold and unapologetic, a challenge to conservative notions of womanhood. The circumstances of her death, peaceful and away from the public eye, stand in stark contrast to the sensationalism that surrounded her early fame. This contrast reveals a broader truth about the fleeting nature of celebrity, especially for women whose fame was built on youth and physical allure. In an era obsessed with image, Wilkinson's death offered a quiet reminder that every star, no matter how dazzling, must eventually fade. Following her passing, many fans and cultural critics reflected on her significance not just as a model, but as a symbol of changing societal norms. Her influence is evident in how later generations of entertainers embraced and redefined sexuality on their own terms. Although she didn't spark political revolutions or artistic movements, Wilkinson's presence in mid-century media helped pave the way for broader conversations about gender, representation, and empowerment. June Wilkinson's legacy lives on in vintage photography, cinema archives, and the evolution of pop culture. Her death invites reflection on how we preserve beauty and celebrity through memory. Mortality, for public figures like Wilkinson, does not erase their impact, it transforms it. Through nostalgic appreciation and cultural analysis, figures like her are continually reinterpreted, ensuring that their place in the story of human expression endures long after they are gone.